If you're just joining us, this is Breakfast Daily, and right now we're in our health segment, and we are going to be looking at the connection between your mental health and your nutrition. Did you ever think that that could work? Well, we're going to be checking it out with Dr. Maxwell Bisala Conlan, and he's a senior dietitian at the University of Ghana Hospital. Hi, you're welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you?
And thank you for having me.
Thank you
blessed.
too.
And you?
Well, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank God.
All right, so let's get straight into it. How does our mental health connect with our nutrition?
All right. So the name is Maxwell Bisala Conlan. It's a dietitian, not a doctor.
Not a doctor,
yes.
yeah.
And this is our nutrition month, being sponsored by the Ghana Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And this is our last day of the month. So we decided to choose something very interesting, which is nutrition and mental health. It's one of the things that most times people don't really pay attention to it.
Right.
It's been neglected, but nutrition plays a very vital role as far as your mental health is concerned. The brain is a very highly metabolic organ which is working even whilst you're at sleep. Now, those metabolic processes in the brain will need nutrients, will need fuel. And just like a car that will need a very high quality fuel, the same way the brain needs the right nutrients to be able to function well. And so most times it's an area that people don't seem to think is important, but there's a body of science that is supporting the fact that when you eat right, it can have an impact on your nutrition health as well as your mental health as well.
Right, so can you share some specific nutrients that have been found to influence our, mental health positively?
Yes, so I mean, this new science is very much backed by evidence, and it's been shown in several researches that the diet we call Mediterranean diet actually has a very good impact as far as your mental health is concerned. Now, when you look at the nutrients, let's take carbohydrate, for instance. It's one of the things that the brain rely on. Glucose is the main fuel of the brain. So when you eat your carbohydrate, it digests and turns into sugar, and then it has to move into the cells of the body, and then some is taken into the brain. So if you don't have enough carbohydrate, it can actually affect the signaling in your brain cells. Now, when that happens, it can affect your mood. So not eating the right amount of carbohydrate or even the right type of carbohydrate can affect your mood.
But when you talk about the Mediterranean diet, it has less carbohydrate, don't you think?
No, it doesn't. What it does is it has more of a whole grain carbohydrate. So the Mediterranean diet tries to promote whole grains or carbohydrates that are unrefined, high in fiber. Example, you can have our brown rice, we talk about our oats, we talk about our wheat bread, our millet, and most of the whole grain cereals. Now, when you take that and it digests, the release of glucose into the blood, it's not so fast as compared to the refined.
Oh, okay.
And so when that happens, the release of insulin is regulated. And insulin is one of the, the things that kind of affect the signaling in the brain. And so that is why when you are trying to improve your mental health, you should focus on whole grain carbohydrate. And carbohydrate is one of the nutrients which is very vital to improve your brain function. Sometimes you see students go to exams without even eating. That is a very bad practice. What you want to do, you don't want to eat too much.
Okay, so we have something in this.
Yes, so we have the plate. So this picture is coming from the Ghana Food-Based Dietary Guidelines, which was done by a team of experts for the Ghanaian policy. So you see that this actually represent, we use our local asanka in terms of our food. So about, close to 1/4 of the portion contains the carbohydrates, you know. So with that, you get to see that you need to have a bit of your whole grains, the brown rice, the cassava, your fufu. Whatever carbohydrates you want to eat, it should be adequate. But the focus should be on the unrefined carbohydrates. And that has been shown to improve mental health in terms of carbohydrate. Then the next nutrient we want to talk about is protein. Now, protein provides the body with amino acids, and amino acids are very important because they provide the body with the essential amino acids that has an impact on the neurotransmitters. When you take dopamine, for instance, which is one of a neurotransmitter in the brain, and then serotonin, they are all gotten from amino acids. So what it means is that if you don't eat enough protein and you don't get enough amino acids, these neurotransmitters can be affected in the brain, and that tends to affect your mood. And there has been a lot of research backing that with depression. So, I mean, people think that it's just food, but food has a long-lasting effect on the brain because of these neurotransmitters. So protein is very important. What type of protein we are talking about?
I like this.
Yes. So
good food, good mood.
Good mood. So exactly. So when you eat well, you are going to have a very good mood. And that is what we are advocating for. And this is not based on people just saying. This is based on a body of science called nutritional psychiatry, or mental health psychiatry, where people are now looking at nutrition and diet and how it has an impact on our mental health.
Right.
You know, so for the proteins, we are looking at the legumes. You know, so you have your nuts, your granules, you can have your cashew nuts, as well as all the, egusi, these are nuts, the nut family are high in protein. Then the red meat, the Mediterranean diet is very low in terms of red meat. But we still would advocate that if you choose red meat, it should be lean. It shouldn't be fatty. And once you eat that, you get the right amino acids that can provide the brain to be able to function in terms of these neurotransmitters. Then we move to fat. You know, fat is one of the important nutrients that is needed for proper brain function. In fact, about 50% of the brain matter is made up of fat. And out of this 50%, 33 is made from what we call the omega-3 fatty acids and the omega-6. Now, what research is telling us is that these omega-3 and omega-6 actually has a very long-lasting impact on your brain, even among younger children. So if you're a pregnant woman and you want to give birth to a child who would have a very well-developed brain, you need to check your intake of omega-3 fatty acids and omega-6. And then even if you're an adult, to prevent you from early dementia, schizophrenia, and other mental health diseases, omega-3 and omega-6 has been found to be helpful. Now, what are some of the foods that you can get these omega-3 from? So with omega-3, you can get them from the oily fishes. You can get them in the salmon. You can get some in your tuna. You can get some in mackerel. Most of the oily fishes, the seafoods, shrimps, lobsters, these foods also contain omega-3. Then omega-6, you get them from the nuts and seeds. That is the groundnuts, your cashew nuts. You can get them from the oils as well, sunflower, soybean oil, and sesame. So
those are like
oil.
the seed oils.
The seed oil, yes. So that is another important nutrient that can actually help in mental health. Then the last category I want us to touch on is the fruits and vegetables, which is also promoted in the Mediterranean diet. Now, with the fruit and vegetables, they contain what we call the essential micronutrients.
Right.
Now, these micronutrients, when they are taken in their right proportion, when they go inside and they are absorbed into the blood, they have an impact on the neurotransmitter pathways. So there are certain signals in the brain that before your brain will even signal you, you need to lift your hand. You need to release those dopamine and serotonin. And some of these, hormones are responsible for mood, to prevent depression. Now, before that process or that cascade of process can be completed for you to have a sound mental health, the micronutrients are one of the nutrients that works to allow those transmission of those signals. And key among them is iron. Okay, so iron is very important, calcium, we have manganese, you can also have selenium as well, and then the B vitamins. It's been shown that people who are having deficiency in B vitamins can actually have depression. And this is also backed by research. So with the fruit and vegetable, it's a very important aspect of your diet. And I think that we keep making sure that every time we are talking about it, and it's because of how important it is. When you eat a wide variety of fruit and vegetables, you'll be able to get these micronutrients I'm talking about. And they kind of go in to affect the transmitters, the neurotransmitters, and that kind of gives you a sound mental health.
What should we avoid in terms of things that are nice to eat but not good for our mental health?
Yes. So in terms of mental health, I mean, basically, it's not so different from some of the foods we advise when it comes to physical health.
Okay.
You know, for instance, we talk about the junk foods. And basically, when we say junk foods, we are talking about foods that have, I mean, very high calories, but less in nutrient. An example would be foods that are high in sugar, salt, and even fat. Okay. So one of the most important things you need to cut down to improve your mental health is the sugar-sweetened beverages or sugary foods. And this is very important. It's also backed by researchers that people who tend to cut down sugar, even among depressed patients, patients who have mental health issues, when they cut down their sugar, they tend to do well. And depression comes with cravings for some of these foods as well. So one would be the sugary drinks, then the deep fried foods, you know, talk about the fried processed foods, you know, all the things we can think of. I remember the last time we were talking about snacking and you were asking about the meat pies. All those things are not healthy. So the idea is that sometimes it's difficult to avoid. So we ask that you limit as much as you can, you know, but if it's frequent, it's going to have an impact on your mental health. And the last one is the ultra processed foods, you know, foods that the fiber has been taken out. And most of our Ghanaian foods now are being refined. That is the problem. Almost everything is refined. People don't even like brown rice anymore because they want to have their white rice.
But it's not nice.
It's not nice. That is true.
I like brown rice.
Really? You know what I do?
I like brown. I even like the ones that I see the stones and I have to pick them out.
I do the combination of brown and white.
That is an excellent strategy.
And that actually helps me. Because suddenly it's almost like it's regular white rice, but it's brown rice mixed, you know, in there.
Exactly.
Even 50-50, it works for me, you know.
Yeah, so that mixture, it's a good thing, you know. So we're encouraging, if you don't like the brown rice, try to add a lot of vegetables. We have our contomere. So you can add a lot of contomere to your rice, and that will still give you some nutrients.
So now, let's talk about people that are obese per se, right? Mostly people that are obese are told, okay, you need to, you know, cut down completely on carbs, right? Now, you said carbs actually are happy foods, food that help the mental health. So how would someone that is suffering from probably a mental health and is also obese now have to deal with their nutrition?
Good question. Now, there's a strong relationship between obesity and mental health. In fact, a lot of research was done, and they realized that people who are obese tend to be 2 times at risk of having a mental health problem like depression.
Wow.
So the link is already there. Now, here's the case like you are saying, but when you have to lose weight or when you are obese, we don't ask you not to eat carbohydrate. What we ask you is to choose the whole grain options, like I was saying. So you go for the more fiber options instead of the refined, because the refined will actually make you gain weight. And it will rather even worsen your mental health situation because of the refined nature of the carbohydrate. So you cut down your portions and you choose more of the whole grains. And it is important that when you are obese, it's important to work to lose your weight, to reduce your risks of depression. Because sometimes comment by people can even, be upsetting.
It can worsen your
And I've seen children in
yeah.
school who are depressed because other colleagues are teasing them that they are obese. So it is not for you not to eat the carbohydrate, but you choose the whole grain fiber options.
Is there a better time or a best time to eat those?
Yeah, so in terms of carbohydrate, it depends on when you want to have it. I know people want to have their typical wache in the morning. Some may prefer a tea, so there's no particular time as to where you place your meals. What is important is the amount you are eating. It is about the amount and not the time. There are people who are taking tea, but they are probably consuming a lot more calories in the morning than the person taking the wache. However, if you eat those heavy meals in the morning and together the same at lunch and supper, you are likely to put on weight because of the calorie content. So you can place it anywhere, but just make sure that the portions are less and the fat or the oil should be less. As we are talking about mental health, we are talking about healthy fats, not just any fat at all. And when you do that, it will go a long way to help. So there's no science to say that eat carbohydrate at this particular time. What is important is the portion and the type of carbohydrate you are eating.
So what about people that have strict dietary restrictions, like someone that says, I'm vegan, I'm vegetarian, I'm pescatarian, this.
Yeah.
How can we help their mental health?
Yes.
With good food?
Yes. So, I mean, eating disorders is an example of a mental health problem which is associated with diet. So we have some people who over-restrict their food because of the fear of weight gain. They look into a mirror, they see a very fat person, but yet when you look at them, they are slim. You know, so it's a psychological problem. And there are others who also eat, but after eating, they purge and bring the food out.
Yeah.
Now, for the vegetarian, it's not an eating disorder. And even there is a body of science.
It's an eating restriction.
Yeah, it's a restriction, yes, but it's not a disorder. So it's not classified as a mental health problem. But, I mean, what vegetarians can do is that when you are a vegetarian, you are likely to lack certain nutrients. One of them may be iron, okay, very important because you get more of the iron from the animal sources, yes. We talk about calcium, which can also be a problem. And this iron problem, I mean, we've seen it in clinic before where one vegetarian patient came and had very low HB. And because of that, the heart has to overwork, so it affected the heart. Until we found out that it was the lack of blood, which is resulting from the vegetarianism. So with such people, it's advised that you see a dietitian or a physician to put you on some supplement that you lack, which you are not getting from the animal sources. You just don't practice it. Because if you don't do it right and you're not getting the right sources from the vegetables and the legumes, you will run into trouble having those nutrient deficiencies. For the eating disorders, we encourage that when you have an eating disorder, it's advisable to ensure that you seek for help because it's a mental health issue. There are people who are having challenges even eating, you know, so it is not something that you would need to say that I want to check my diet. It will not work. So mostly the management is done in conjunction with a psychologist. And then we have ways to help such people from overcoming those severe restrictions because it can have detrimental effect on your health outcome.
Right.
So if let's say you're a vegetarian, right, and maybe you can wrap up with this for us. If you're a vegetarian and you have iron challenges, there are quite a lot of plant foods that are quite heavy and rich in iron. Is that not an option as opposed to supplementation?
Exactly. So that's a very good question. Yes. So you can get iron from some plant sources. But sometimes the plant sources of iron is not easily absorbed compared to the animal sources. So you may be taking the plant sources, you won't get enough.
As much
yes, the body is unable to absorb it. And so this doesn't even work for many, some vegetarian patients. There are some who are able to do proper combination and their iron levels are fine. But most of them are mostly at risk. So the plant sources, if it's not able to cover up, then you will need some supplementation. This is where supplement may be needed to help you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much for this. This is very enlightening. All right, thank you to Maxwell Bisala Conlan. He's a registered dietitian and a senior dietitian with the University of Ghana Hospital. Well, we've been discussing nutrition and your mental health.